How should I uncover the mastermind behind all this? He was a hero who tamed the floods, praised by the court and the people. I was his betrothed, promised to him through all proper rituals, waiting for him for 3 years. On the day he returned in glory, he knelt before the emperor and all the court to beg to marry his sworn sister as his equal wife. The court erupted in shock. My father slammed the table in rage on the spot. But the emperor beamed with delight. You are loyal and affectionate. My dear subject, I grant your wish. 3 days later, 2 imperial edicts arrived at the same time. One was sent to the prime minister's residence, betrothing him to his sworn sister. The other came to the general's residence, betrothing me to the imperial uncle. I froze. Julian knelt in the center of the golden throne hall. Your Majesty, I humbly beg for your grace. Grant me permission to marry my sworn sister, Selena, as my equal wife. His voice was clear and bright, echoing throughout the hall of supreme harmony. I stood at the end of the military officials' line beside my father, feeling everyone's eyes on me. Those eyes were like needles pricking into my skin, thick and fast. We were betrothed, promised 3 years ago, with all the proper ceremonies. Only the wedding procession left undone. I waited for him for 3 years, waited for him to return from taming the floods in the south. He came back today in triumph, hailed as the hero who conquered the waters. And then before all the court, he begged to marry another woman as his equal wife. It was no different from divorcing me, only sparing the general's residence the last shred of dignity. My father's face darkened instantly. He stepped forward, his armor clanging. Julian. My father's voice boomed like a bell. What do you take my daughter for? Julian did not turn around. He kowtowed heavily to the emperor on the throne. Selena and I grew up together. Your Majesty, when I left home to tame the floods, Selena prayed day and night for me, exhausting her heart and soul. Now she is gravely ill with little time left. I cannot betray her. He spoke with sincere emotion. Nor will I ever betray Miss Sienna. I offer her the position of equal wife to honor her all my life. The hall fell dead silent. I heard officials beside me gasp. My father trembled with rage. Nonsense. A military man. He cursed openly in court. A betrothal is no trivial matter. The emperor sat on the dragon throne, expressionless. He looked at Julian, then at my father, and finally his gaze fell on me. His eyes were deep, unreadable. I lowered my eyes, not letting anyone see my face. My hands clenched into fists inside my sleeves. My nails dug into my flesh. It hurt, but not 1/10th as much as my heart. Julian spoke again. I know I have wronged General Sterling and Miss Sterling, but Selena saved my life, and we share the bond of siblings. If I abandon her now, I am not worthy to be called a man. Your Majesty, please grant me this act of loyalty and affection. He spoke so beautifully loyal and affectionate. What about me then? What were the 3 years I waited for him? What was all the support the Sterling family had given him? A sickly sworn sister. And it all counted for nothing. Whispers began to spread through the hall. Some civil officials looked moved, clearly touched by Julian's deep devotion. My father wanted to curse again. The emperor raised a hand. General Sterling. His voice was calm. Be at peace. My father had to swallow his words. He glared fiercely at Julian's back as if trying to burn a hole through it. The emperor was silent for a long time. So long I thought this was just a nightmare. Then he smiled. What a loyal and affectionate Julian. I grant your wish. Those 4 words were like a hammer, beating against my heart again and again. Julian was overjoyed. Thank your Majesty for your great grace. He kowtowed repeatedly. The court was in an uproar. My father's face turned from livid to ashen. I felt all strength leave my body. I could barely stand. Swaying unsteadily, a hand held my arm. It was my father's hand, the hand that had fought on battlefields, now cold and trembling slightly. I heard the emperor continue. Julian has rendered great service in taming the floods, and his loyalty is admirable. I am deeply pleased. However, Miss Sterling has been wronged. My name is Sienna. The emperor called me Miss Sterling. I lifted my head, looking at the man high above. He was looking at me too. his eyes holding something I could not understand. Pity. Perhaps. I did not need it. Therefore, I will not let you suffer wrong, the emperor said to me. His voice softened a little. Julian is not worthy of you. I will arrange a new marriage for you. I froze. My father froze. All the court froze. Julian stopped kowtowing. He lifted his head, his face full of shock. The emperor ignored everyone. He looked to the side of the hall. A man had been standing there all along, wearing a prince's python robe, tall and straight. He had not said a word from beginning to end, just watching the farce in silence. It was the imperial uncle Xander, the emperor's own uncle, commander of heavy troops, the prince of northern pacification, guarding the northern border. Imperial uncle. The emperor spoke. What do you think of my proposal? Xander stepped out of the shadows. He walked to the center of the hall, all eyes fixed on him. He was handsome, the kind of handsomeness forged by war and killing, a pair of eyes like cold stars. He glanced at me just once, then turned to the emperor and bowed. I defer to your majesty's decision. His voice was deep with a metallic texture, pleasant to hear. The emperor laughed loud and clear. Good. Today I shall decide this matter. He stood up, looking down at us from above. Julian. I grant you marriage to Lady Selena. The ceremony shall be held in 3 days. Sienna. I betroth you to Prince Xander of Northern Pacification. The wedding date shall also be in 3 days. 2 imperial edicts will be sent to your residences shortly. Retire. I did not know how I walked out of the palace. My mind was blank. All I heard was the chatter of officials buzzing in my ears, like a swarm of flies. My father supported me, not saying a word. His silence hurt more than any roar. The general's residence carriage waited at the palace gate. Once inside, the carriage was also silent. My father sat opposite me, watching the streets flash past outside the window. His jaw was tight like a stone. I knew he was angry. Angry at Julian. Angry at the emperor. Angry at himself, too, for failing to protect me. Father. I spoke, my voice a little unsteady. I'm fine. My father turned to look at me, his eyes full of distress. I am useless, he said. I let you suffer such wrongs. I shook my head. It's not your fault. It really wasn't. Who could have imagined that Julian would go this far? That the emperor would make such a decision? It was too fast. Everything too fast. Too fast to react. Falling from the clouds into the mud, then pulled out of the mud by a hand and thrown to a higher place. Imperial Uncle Xander. Prince of Northern Pacification. The man's face flashed through my mind. That one glance he gave me. So calm, without any emotion, as if looking at an object. A gift the emperor had bestowed upon him. I closed my eyes, feeling exhausted. These 3 years had been a joke. My waiting, my hope, all turned into a farce. The carriage stopped. We had reached the general's residence. My father got out first, then reached out to help me. I stepped onto the ground. The sunlight stunned my eyes. I looked up at the plaque of the general's residence, and it felt strangely unfamiliar. Back in my courtyard, I sent all the maids away, sat alone in the room. On the table lay the knee pads I had made for Julian, embroidered with green bamboo, wishing him promotion and safety. I picked up a pair of scissors and cut again and again, shredding the knee pads to pieces. I did not cry. Not a single tear fell. I only felt an empty hole in my chest, cold wind blowing through it. In the evening, eunuchs from the palace arrived with great pomp, beating gongs and drums. The whole household knelt in the courtyard to receive the edict. I knelt at the front, too, numbly listening to the eunuch's shrill voice. He read Julian's edict first. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees nothing but praise for Julian's loyalty and affection. Then, betroth him to Selena. The wedding shall be held in 3 days. This is my imperial will. Then came mine. The eunuch unrolled another edict, bright yellow, more magnificent than the last. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees. It has come to my notice that Sienna Sterling, legitimate daughter of the general's residence, is skilled, proper, gentle, and sincere. She and the Prince of Northern Pacification, Xander, are a match made in heaven to unite this lovely pair. I hereby betroth her to the prince as his primary consort. All rituals shall be handled by the Ministry of Rites and the Imperial Clan Court. The wedding shall be held in 3 days. This is my imperial will. 2 imperial edicts. One after another, like 2 slaps across the face. One on mine, one on Julian's. I accepted the edict. This humble daughter thanks your majesty. The eunuch smiled broadly, handing the edict to me, and pressed a heavy silk pouch into my hand. Congratulations. Royal consort. Congratulations. I held the edict, feeling it weigh 1,000 caddies. After sending the eunuch away, my father told me to rise. My mother held me, her eyes red. Sienna, my child. She hugged me, her voice choking. Why is your fate so bitter? I patted her back. Mother, it is not bitter. Your daughter is now the prince consort of Northern Pacification. It is a blessing. I spoke calmly, surprising even myself. My father looked at me, his eyes complicated. Have you truly made up your mind? I knew what he was asking. Marrying Xander. He was not an easy man to deal with. Rumors said he killed without mercy, cold and ruthless. He had long guarded the northern border. Few stories of him reached the capital, but everyone spoke of blood. And he was a prince. I had no right to refuse his marriage. Father, this is an imperial edict, I said. There is no making up one's mind, only accepting or not. My father fell silent. Indeed. If the ruler orders a subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. How much more so a betrothal? It was imperial grace. The Sterling family could only accept. I barely ate anything for dinner. I had no appetite. Mother looked at me with worry. Father drank a great deal of wine. At night, I sat alone by the window, staring at the moon in the sky. It was full yet cold. The courtyard gate was knocked upon. A maid entered and said, "Miss, Master Julian is here." Julian. What was he doing here? To laugh at me. I will not see him. I said, "Tell him to leave." The maid looked troubled. "But he says he has something very important to hand to you personally." I let out a cold laugh. Let him wait. I went back to the dressing table and took out our old betrothal token, a jade pendant he had worn close to his body. Then I walked to the front yard. Julian stood in the middle of the courtyard wearing a brand new official robe, looking refreshed and glowing. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Sienna. He stepped toward me. I threw the jade pendant at his feet. Take back your thing. From now on, we owe each other nothing. The jade pendant struck the blue stone ground. It did not break, but let out a clear, sharp sound. Julian's face changed. He looked down at the pendant, then lifted his head to me. His eyes hurt. Sienna, must you be like this? I know you're angry, but Selena and I are innocent. I'm marrying her only to give her a name, to let her recover in peace. The one in my heart has always been you. I listened to his words and felt only disgust. Julian. I looked at him, speaking each word slowly and clearly. Spare me your lies. I don't care who you marry. I am now the prince consort of Northern Pacification, personally appointed by the Emperor. In future, show some respect. With that, I turned to leave. He grabbed my wrist from behind. Sienna. Wait. His grip was strong. Let me explain. Is someone forcing you? Is it His Majesty? I wrenched my hand away. Let go. Just then, a cold voice came from the courtyard gate. Who gave you the nerve to touch this prince's future consort? Both Julian and I froze. We turned around together. A man stood at the gate, tall and straight as a pine tree. Moonlight gilded him with silver. It was Xander. He had changed out of his python robe and wore dark informal clothes. Yet his imposing presence had not faded at all. If anything, the night made him even more oppressive. 2 guards stood behind him like iron towers. Xander's gaze swept over the hand that had held me, and his eyes turned cold at once. Cold as the ice of the northern border. Julian let go as if burned. All color drained from his face. Why, Your Highness? He stammered as he bowed. this lowly official. I didn't. Xander ignored him. He walked straight toward me, each step seeming to beat against one's heartbeat. He stopped in front of me. He was very tall. I had to tilt my head up to see his face. His eyes were dark like a bottomless pool. Did he hurt you? He asked. His voice was not loud, yet carried unquestionable authority. I shook my head and instinctively hid my wrist behind me. Xander's gaze fell on the red mark around my wrist. His brows furrowed. Then he turned to Julian. Master Julian, he said, his voice calm. Visiting this prince's future consort's residence in the middle of the night, and laying hands on her. Do you think your head sits too safely on your shoulders? Julian fell to his knees in terror. Your Highness, have mercy. This lowly official only wished to explain a misunderstanding to Miss Sterlingto the consort. I meant no disrespect whatsoever. A misunderstanding. Xander let out a faint laugh, empty of warmth. His Majesty personally announced the betrothal in the Golden Throne Hall. Do you think His Majesty misunderstood? Or do you think this prince misunderstood? Julian bowed his head even lower. I dare not. I deserve death for my crimes. He kowtowed repeatedly, his forehead thudding against the stone. I watched the scene and felt nothing. Not even a ripple. It was almost ridiculous. This was the man I once loved. This was his so-called integrity before real power. It crumbled to dust. Xander no longer looked at him. He held out a hand to me. Come here. His palm was broad with thin calluses. The hands of a man who held weapons. I hesitated for a moment, then placed my hand in his. His hand was warm, dry, and strong, gently wrapping around mine. He led me away, turning toward the inner residence. Guards, he ordered without looking back. Escort Master Julian out. If he refuses to leave, break his legs and throw him out. Behind us came Julian's terrified pleas and the guard's cold reply. Yes, Your Highness. I was led by Xander along the covered corridor. Not a word was spoken. His hand never let go. We walked in silence until we reached the gate of my courtyard. Only then did he stop and release my hand. Go inside, he said. Rest early. I looked at him. Moonlight lit up his face, its features sharp and clear. Your Highness, thank you for tonight. I finally spoke. Whatever else. He had saved me from embarrassment. You are this prince's consort, he said calmly. Looking at me, protecting you is only right. This prince does not wish for this to happen again. He was referring to Julian's harassment. I nodded. It won't happen again. He hummed in acknowledgement and turned to leave. Your Highness. I called after him. He turned back, a questioning look in his eyes. I plucked up my courage and asked the question in my heart. Why? Why me? In the Golden Throne Hall, when the Emperor had asked his opinion, he could have refused. He was the imperial uncle, the Prince of Northern Pacification. No one could force him to marry a woman he did not want. Xander looked at me. He was silent for so long that I thought he would not answer. At last he spoke slowly. Many years ago on the Lantern Festival on 7 Wu Street, a little girl crashed into my horse. She gave me all the candy she had and said earnestly, I'm sorry, Uncle. My heart jolted violently. A long-buried memory surfaced. I was only 7 that year. I had snuck out of the residence with my brother to see the lanterns. The crowd was too thick. I got separated from him, panicked. I ran straight into a tall horse. The man on it wore black armor, a mask covering his face. I could not see his features. I only remembered he was tall like a mountain. I was terrified, thinking I had caused a great disaster. So, I pulled out all the candies in my arms and held them out to him. Uncle, I'm sorry. I'll give you all my candies. Please don't be angry. The man said nothing. He only took one candy, then rode away. I had always thought it was just a small incident, long forgotten. I never imagined that man was him. That candy. Xander looked at me, starlight seeming to flicker in his dark eyes. It was very sweet. I have remembered it for many years. I went back into my room, closed the door, and leaned against it, my heart still pounding. Lantern Festival, 7 Wu Street. One candy. It was him, the masked man. Tall as a mountain. I could never have connected that blurry shadow with the Prince of Northern Pacification beneath the moon tonight. He said he had remembered it for years. All because of one candy. The reason sounded absurd and ridiculous. Yet when he spoke it, there was an unmistakable earnestness. My mind was in chaos. From the humiliation of having my betrothal broken to the shock of the imperial betrothal and now this sudden 10-year-old memory, everything felt like a dream. A bizarre, tangled dream. I walked to the dressing table and looked at myself in the mirror. A stranger. A royal consort. Xander's wife. This identity had been beyond my reach only yesterday. Today, it was the brand of the rest of my life. I took a deep breath and told myself, Sienna, calm down. No matter why Xander married me, whether on a whim or by the Emperor's order, this marriage was set. All I could do was accept it and live well for myself and for the Sterling family. The next day before dawn, the entire general's residence burst into busy activity. Officials from the Ministry of Rights sent by the palace, stewards from the imperial clan court, eunuchs from the imperial household bringing rewards, wave after wave filling our not-so-large front yard to the brim. Mother, excited and nervous, attended to them all. Father was surrounded by ritual officials, discussing every detail of the grand wedding 3 days later. The maids in my courtyard walked briskly, their faces unable to hide excitement and pride. Miss, look. These are Eastern pearls granted by His Majesty, and this brocade. It's tribute from the Western regions. Only 2 pieces come each year. Miss. A message came from the gate. Several dukes' mansions have sent congratulatory gifts. The maid Chloe chatted on, her eyes brighter than the jewels. I looked at the mountains of rewards and gifts filling the room. Gold, silver, jade, silks, and satins. Each piece priceless. All stamped with the imperial seal or bearing cards from noble houses. The occasion was 100 times more magnificent than when I had been betrothed to Julian. The fickleness of human relationships, the coldness of the world, it was all laid bare in this moment. Yesterday, I was the jilted girl, humiliated and laughed at across the capital. Today, I was the soon-to be royal consort, second only to the imperial family. From Chloe, I heard that Julian had also received his imperial edict. The emperor had graciously granted his marriage to Selena in 3 days. But it was only a grant, not a single reward. He even had to pay for the wedding himself. I heard the eunuch who delivered the edict did not even stay for tea. He left immediately after handing it over. The Julian residence gate was cold and quiet, a stark contrast to the bustling scene at our general's residence. This was reality. This was power. In the afternoon, embroideresses sent from the palace brought my wedding dress. It was a grand crimson gown embroidered with gold threads in the pattern of 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. The hem was studded with rice-sized pearls. Luxurious and heavy, the embroideresses helped me try it on layer after layer. It took a full half-hour to dress completely. When I stood before the full-length bronze mirror and looked at myself wearing the phoenix crown and embroidered cape, I felt dazed for a moment. It was still my face. Yet somehow I looked like a completely different person. Your Highness, you are heavenly. The head embroideress praised. Only you can carry this wedding dress with such grace. I stroked the delicate embroidery on the gown. It felt cold to the touch. This was not just clothing. It was my new identity and my new shackle. I did not know whether fortune or disaster awaited me. But the road had already been laid before my feet. I could only walk forward. There was no turning back. The day before the wedding, Xander came again. He arrived at dusk. He did not disturb anyone, bringing only one attendant and appearing silently in my courtyard. I was reading the wedding rituals sent by the Ministry of Rights. The complicated etiquette gave me a headache. I did not even notice him enter until his shadow fell over the scroll in my hands. I looked up in surprise. Why? Our Highness. I stood up at once and bowed. He wore a dark blue tight-fitting outfit today, making him look even taller and straighter. He seemed less imposing as a prince and more crisp, like a man of the rivers and lakes. Rise, he said, waving for me to sit. What are you reading? His gaze fell to the table before me. The wedding rituals from the Ministry of Rights. I answered truthfully. They are too complicated. He walked to the table, picked up the thick booklet, and flipped through it casually. His brows furrowed almost at once. Pay no mind to these formalities, he said. Tomorrow, you only need to follow the wedding maid. Leave everything else to me. His tone was calm, yet it carried a reassuring strength. I nodded. Very well. A silence fell between us. I did not know what to say. He did not seem like a man of many words either. The atmosphere grew awkward. I had to pour him a cup of tea. Your Highness, please. He took the cup, took a small sip, then pulled a small box from his chest and placed it on the table, pushing it toward me. What is this? I asked, confused. Open it, he said. I did as I was told. Inside was a seal carved from pure white suet jade. It depicted a lifelike little rabbit. Beneath it was my name, Sienna. What is this for? I looked up at him. The Prince of Northern Pacification's residence has several treasury keys. He explained. This one is for you. From now on, the inner residence will be under your charge. This seal shall be your token. I held the warm jade seal, and it felt almost burning. Control of the entire inner residence of the prince's mansion. He was giving it to me so easily. We were only to be married tomorrow. We barely even knew each other. This is too valuable. I pushed the box back. I cannot accept it. Xander looked at me, his eyes deep. You are my lawfully wedded consort, he said. The entire mansion is yours. It is only a seal. Why not accept it? His words were overbearing and unreasonable, yet left me unable to argue. I looked at him, my heart a jumble of emotions. What exactly did he want? Could it really be just because of a single candy 10 years ago? Take it. He pushed the box back again. This time his tone held an unquestionable command. I had no choice but to accept. Just then, the maid Chloe rushed in flustered. Miss. It's bad. Selena is here. I frowned. What was she doing here? She says she wants to apologize to you face to face. Chloe huffed. I think she's a weasel paying New Year's calls to a rooster up to no good. And she brought someone with her, Julian. Before I could speak, Xander stood up beside me. His face showed little expression, but his eyes had turned slightly cold. This prince is still here, he said calmly. They dare to come anyway. He stepped outside. Pay them no mind. I will handle this. I followed, feeling uneasy. We reached the courtyard gate. Sure enough, Julian and Selena stood there blocked by the general's residence guards. Selena wore plain white robes, her face painted to look sickly. She swayed in the wind, looking delicate and pitiful. Julian supported her, his face full of distress and indignation. When they saw me come out, Julian's eyes lit up. Sienna. He was about to speak, when he saw Xander beside me. His expression froze at once. His mouth hung open, unable to make a sound. Selena also paled, shrinking timidly behind Julian. Xander did not even glance at them. He only said to the guards, "Throw them out. From now on, if any stray cats or dogs come to the gate, break their legs first." The guards hesitated for a moment, then immediately answered loudly, "Yes, Your Highness." They charged forward like tigers, dragging the still stunned Julian and Selena away. Julian was anxious and terrified. "Your Highness, we only came to apologize." Selena looked even more frightened, letting out a weak scream. "Ah! Let go of me." Xander ignored them completely. He even frowned in disgust. Too noisy. His attendant understood at once, stepped forward, and with a move I could not see, Julian and Selena's cries stopped abruptly, like chickens with their necks wrung. Only hoarse gasps came from them. Soon they were dragged out of the general's residence. Two dull thuds followed outside along with the shouts of servants chasing them away. The world was quiet again. Xander turned to me. "It's handled," he said lightly, as if he had just swatted two flies. I looked at him, my feelings complicated. This was the Prince of Northern Pacification. Simple, rough, but effective. He seemed to read my thoughts. "From now on, nothing like this will trouble you again," he promised. "I am here. He spoke those 3 words softly, yet they fell like a stone into the quiet lake of my heart, rippling outward in circles. On the wedding day before dawn, I was dragged from bed by a crowd of wedding maids and servants. Washing, makeup, dressing. The whole process took 2 full hours. When I finally wore the heavy wedding dress and the phoenix crown that almost broke my neck, I felt I was no longer myself. I had become a carefully dressed doll. When the auspicious hour arrived, my father carried me out himself. His back was broad and steady, just like when I was little. I lay on his back through the thick wedding dress and could feel his body stiffen. I knew he could not bear to let me go. "Sienna," he said in a low voice as he walked. "Take good care of yourself at the mansion. Xander looks cold, but he is not a bad man. If you are wronged, come home. Father and your brother will stand behind you." My eyes burned. I almost cried. "Father, I understand." I mumbled into his neck. Outside the residence gate, the wedding procession from the Prince of Northern Pacification's mansion stretched down an entire street. The ceremonial flags were bright, the music loud, and 8 pallbearers carried a sedan chair. Golden-roofed and red-curtained, crowds of onlookers packed the streets, busier than the Lantern Festival. Everyone wanted to see the general's daughter who had been jilted, and the Prince of Northern Pacification, rumored to be a god of slaughter. What a sight they would make. My father set me gently into the sedan chair. The wedding maid lowered the curtain, cutting off all sight and noise from outside. "Lift the sedan." With a loud shout, the chair was raised smoothly and began moving toward the Prince of Northern Pacification's mansion. I sat inside, surrounded by swaying red, listening to the drums, gongs, and murmurs of the crowd. My mind was blank. I did not know how long passed when the sedan chair suddenly stopped. The music outside also fell silent. Complete quiet. Then came a commotion and a man's suppressed roar. "Out of my way. I want to see Sienna. You can't take her like this." That voice. It was Julian. My heart sank. What was he trying to do? Ruin my wedding? How dared he? "Master Julian, show respect." It was my brother Samuel's voice. "Today is my sister's wedding day. If you dare cause trouble, do not blame me for being ruthless. I am not causing trouble." Julian's voice held a trace of madness and despair. "Sienna is mine. She was forced. I'm taking her away." Insolence. A cold, sharp shout cut through the air. I recognized that voice. It was Xander. He had come to meet me personally. By right, he should have been waiting at the mansion. The outside fell completely silent. Only Julian's heavy breathing could be heard. "Julian." Xander's voice was icy. "This prince spared you today out of consideration for your own wedding yesterday. But if you dare utter one more word of nonsense, this prince will not mind sending you and your loyal and affectionate lady to be a pair of doomed lovers right now." Those words were heavy, carrying undisguised killing intent. I could picture Julian's pale ashen face. Deathly silence reigned outside. After a long while, Xander coldly ordered, "Throw him far away." "Continue." The music started again. The sedan chair moved forward smoothly once more, as if everything that had just happened was nothing but an illusion. I leaned against the sedan wall and let out a long breath. Yet, I felt no pleasure. Only exhaustion and disgust. Julian. That name and the past it represented was today finally crushed to pieces and buried forever. The sedan chair soon arrived at the Prince of Northern Pacification's mansion. It stopped. The wedding maid lifted the curtain. "Princess, please." A bright light flooded in from outside. Supported by the maid, I kept my head lowered and stepped carefully out of the chair. A distinct, broad hand wearing a jade thumb ring stretched out before me. It was Xander. He wore a red wedding robe matching mine, embroidered with a golden dragon pattern, making him look even more heroic and extraordinary. I hesitated for a moment, then placed my hand in his. His palm was large and warm, holding mine firmly and steadily. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "Follow me." I lifted my head. Through the red veil, I met his eyes. In those cold star-like pupils, my reflection was mirrored along with a gentle firelight I had never seen before. He led me step by step over the fire basin, Up the steps into the place that would become my new home. Into the rest of my life. Xander and I stood side by side in the center of the main hall. Red candles burned high. Guests filled the hall. I could feel gazes coming from all directions, curious, probing, envious, disdainful. I could not see their faces. Beneath the veil, the world was only a hazy red. And beside me, the steady breathing of this man. The wedding maid called out in a loud voice. First bow to heaven and earth. He led me to turn and bow toward the outside of the hall. Second bow to parents and superiors. On the dragon throne. The emperor watched us with a smile. He was present today as an elder. We bowed deeply to him. Third bow to each other. We stood facing one another through the red silk. I could not see his expression, only his tall, straight outline. We bent and bowed. The ceremony was complete. From this moment on, I was his wife, Sienna Sterling, Princess of Northern Pacification. Thunderous congratulations erupted through the hall. Congratulations to the prince. Congratulations to the princess. I was ushered by the maids to the bridal chamber. Xander followed behind. He had to greet the guests in the front hall. The bridal chamber was lit with dragon and phoenix wedding candles. The bed was covered with peanuts, longans, and lotus seeds. I was helped to sit on the edge. The maid spoke a few auspicious words with smiles and then withdrew. I was left alone in the room. I sat motionless. The phoenix crown on my head was heavy, the wedding dress on my body heavy, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. I did not know how long I sat. 1 hour or 2. The noise of the guests outside gradually faded. The room was so quiet I could hear the crackle of the candles burning. My heart fluttered nervously. Creak. The door opened. I stiffened. All over. It was him. His footsteps were light, carrying a faint scent of wine. He stopped in front of me. I could see his red robe hem and black boots. He did not speak. Neither did I. The air seemed to freeze. After a long while, he finally spoke. Tired, aren't you? His voice was a little hoarser than during the day. I let out a soft mem. He picked up the wedding scale from the table and gently lifted my veil. The world suddenly opened up. The bright candlelight stunned my eyes. When I adjusted to the light, the first thing I saw was his face. Very close. In the candlelight, his features softened, losing some of the daytime sharpness. Those deep eyes were fixed on me, reflecting my face and the dancing flames. My cheeks burned. I lowered my eyes instinctively. Hungry? He asked again. The kitchen has prepared food. I shook my head. In truth, I was starving. I had drunk only a sip of water since morning. But when he asked, I no longer felt hungry. Only nervous. He seemed to see through my embarrassment and let out a soft laugh. He turned and poured 2 cups of nuptial wine, handing one to me. Drink this cup. And you are the rightful princess of Northern Pacification. I took the cup. It was warm. He slipped his arm through mine. An intimate gesture that made my heart race. I copied him and tilted my head, drinking the wine in one gulp. The wine was strong, burning from my throat down to my stomach. My face grew even hotter. He set down his cup and began removing the phoenix crown from my head. His movements were gentle and careful. As if afraid of hurting me, the heavy crown was taken off. My neck felt light at once. I shifted slightly without thinking. He looked at me and suddenly said, Sienna. He spoke my name. I know this marriage has wronged you. I froze, not knowing how to reply. You have my word. He went on. I did not marry you to have you wronged in a new place. You do not need to fear me. In this mansion, no one dares to treat you badly, including me. When he said those last 3 words, his gaze was unusually sincere. I looked at him, and the tightest string inside me loosened a little. Rest early tonight, he said, standing up. I will sleep in the study. I looked up in shock. Your Highness. Wedding night. He was going to sleep in the study. If word got out. You've been tired all day, he said as if reading my mind. Besides, we are not yet familiar. I do not wish to frighten you. He walked to the door, then paused and turned back. Sienna, we have a lifetime. We can take our time. With that, he pulled open the door and left, closing it gently behind him. I was alone in the room again. I sat on the bed, staring at the dancing candlelight. My heart tangled like a mess of threads. Xander. This man was nothing like what I had heard. He was no god of slaughter. No cold, heartless prince. He seemed to understand gentleness better than anyone. The next day, I woke up early. The unfamiliar bed and room made me feel uneasy. The space beside me was empty and cold. Xander truly had not returned all night. I sat up and looked at the splendid, empty bridal chamber. My heart felt hollow, a mix of loss and relief I could not name. Chloe came in with several unfamiliar maids. They were the mansion's personal servants. Their eyes held respect and a faint hidden curiosity. "Princess, you're awake." Chloe's voice was full of suppressed joy. "This servant will help you freshen up." I nodded and let them change me out of the wedding dress into my daily princess robes, style my hair in a married woman's bun, and insert the red gold hair ornaments that marked my status. When I saw myself in the mirror, I felt as if I had become another person. The carefree Sienna from the general's residence was dead. She had died in the Golden Throne Hall. What lived on was Sienna, princess of northern pacification. After I was dressed, Chloe brought breakfast. It was delicate, but I had little appetite. "Where is the prince?" I asked. "His Highness left for court early this morning," Chloe answered. "He told us not to disturb you." I let out a soft mem. My feelings complicated. Just then, a middle-aged man in steward's clothing, around 40 years old, bowed at the door. "This old servant Felix greets the princess. May you be safe and well," Chloe whispered in my ear. "Princess, this is the mansion's head steward, Uncle Felix." I nodded and let him enter. "Steward Felix, there is no need for such formality." Felix stood straight, glanced at me briefly, then quickly lowered his eyes. His manner was respectful, yet neither humble nor arrogant. Before His Highness left, he instructed, "From today onward, all affairs of the inner mansion are under your command. Princess, these are the keys to all quarters and the register of all servants. These are the account books from the inner and outer treasuries. Please inspect them." Princess. Two young servants behind him carried large trays. One held dozens of shining keys and a thick register. The other was piled high with account books. I looked at the two trays and felt a slight headache. Xander really had handed the entire mansion over to me. Did he not fear I would squander his fortune? I looked at Felix, who managed the mansion's affairs before. "Your Highness has long guarded the northern border." Princess. There was no mistress of the house. The inner mansion's small matters were handled by this old servant. The outer treasury was managed by His Highness's trusted men. I understood. Xander was using the most direct way to announce my status to the entire mansion and to keep the promise he had made the night before. "I see." I nodded. "Leave them here for now. I have only just arrived and do not yet understand many things. I will need to rely on your guidance." "Steward Felix." My tone was polite. A faint look of surprise crossed Felix's face. He had probably expected me to act like many new mistresses and rush to establish authority. "You honor me too greatly, Princess. It is my duty." He bowed. "If you have any orders, Princess, you may send for me at any time." I dismissed him. I looked at the mountain of account books inside. It seemed my carefree days were over. I told Chloe to bring out the jade seal Xander had given me the night before and place it on the table next to the keys and books. This was my authority and my responsibility. As Chloe helped me tidy up, she gossiped quietly. "Princess, you have no idea. The Julian family's wedding yesterday became a joke across the capital." I looked up. "How so?" "I heard that Julian and Selena only held a simple ceremony at their residence. They didn't even set out many tables of wine. No one of any importance attended. Only their poor relatives. Compared to our mansion's wedding, it was like heaven and earth." Chloe spoke animatedly. "What's more, this morning, officials from the Ministry of Rights went to the Julian residence and reprimanded Master Julian. They said he behaved improperly before the Emperor on his own wedding day and disrupted your procession. He was fined 3 months' salary." I listened without feeling anything. All this felt a past life. Far away from me. Stop asking about such things in future. I told Chloe calmly. Now that we are in the prince's mansion, we must be more careful in our conduct. Always remember. Disaster comes from the mouth. Chloe stuck out her tongue. This servant understands. I picked up an account book and flipped it open casually. The numbers on the pages made my eyes swim. Suddenly, I remembered something. Chloe. Go and find out. Is today the day Julian and Selena return to her home? Chloe froze for a moment. I think yes. I closed the book. I smiled. What a coincidence. Today was also the day I returned to my own home. I was quite looking forward to seeing what the return journey would look like for our two pairs of affectionate newlyweds. In the afternoon, Xander returned from court. He changed out of his court robes into a dark black informal outfit. When he walked into the room, I was checking accounts with Felix. Your Highness. Felix and I stood up to greet him. No need, he said. He walked straight to my side and naturally picked up one of the books I had just annotated. Can you understand it? He asked. Fairly well. I had learned household management from Mother since I was little. These accounts, though complicated, were not beyond me. If you don't understand something, ask Felix, he said, setting the book down. Or ask me. Felix stood to one side, eyes lowered, pretending he was not there. This afternoon, I will go with you to the general's residence, Xander said. I nodded. Very well. He looked at me. No need to be so formal. Be more at ease in your own home. He always saw through my pretense. I tried to relax. Have you had lunch? Your Highness. I changed the subject. No. I'll wait for you. My heart skipped a beat. This was our first meal together at the same table. The table was quiet. He ate elegantly without making a sound. Yet quickly. Clearly a habit formed in the military. He served me dishes. All of them my favorites. I was surprised. How did you know? I asked. I asked your mother. He replied calmly. My mother. When had he asked her? I never knew. This man was always doing unexpected things without me even knowing. After the meal, the carriage for returning home was already prepared. It followed the prince's mansion standards. Luxurious and grand. We sat side by side. The carriage was spacious with a good distance between us. He did not speak. Closing his eyes as if resting, I quietly lifted a corner of the curtain and looked out. The streets were lively. When the carriage reached Juku Avenue, it suddenly slowed down. There was a blockage ahead. A faint, indistinct crying drifted in on the wind. What is happening? Xander opened his eyes and frowned. A guard outside reported quickly. Your Highness. Master Julian's carriage has broken down in the middle of the road. Julian. My heart stirred. Today was also the day he accompanied Selena back to her home. Selena's family was long gone. Returning home was only a formality to pay respects to her late parents. Broken down. There was a hint of mockery in Xander's tone. Did it really break? Or was it made to break? The guard bowed his head. It looks as if the axle has snapped. Madame Julian is sitting on the ground crying, drawing a crowd. I peeked through the gap in the curtain. Sure enough, not far away, a shabby blue cloth carriage leaned crookedly by the road, one wheel fallen off. Selena wore white, sitting on the ground, crying pitifully. Julian stood beside her, comforting her helplessly. A circle of onlookers surrounded them, pointing and whispering. No one knew if they pitied them or mocked them. How pathetic. It was a bitterly ironic contrast to our golden, magnificent prince's procession. Julian also saw our carriage. His face turned pale in an instant. In his eyes were humiliation, unwillingness, and a trace of venom. Selena stopped crying, too. She lifted her head and stared blankly toward us. Her delicate, pitiful face was twisted with jealousy. Take no notice, Xander ordered coldly. Go around. Yes, Your Highness. Under everyone's gaze. Our carriage slowly circled past them as if trampling over two insignificant ants. I let the curtain fall. I felt no imagined satisfaction, only a calm sense of closure. Julian. Selena. Their story. Their love and hate. It no longer had anything to do with me. My life had turned to a new page. But they were still stuck where they were, trapped in a ridiculous mire by their so-called deep affection. The carriage soon reached the general's residence. My father, mother, and brother Samuel were all waiting at the gate. When they saw us step down, the worry on their faces turned to relief at once. Father, mother, brother. I stepped forward and bowed, my eyes burning. Xander followed me, bowing slightly to my parents. Xander, your son-in-law, greets you, father and mother. Despite being a prince, on this day, he put aside his status and gave the Sterling family the greatest respect as a husband. My father's face flushed with excitement. Your Highness, please rise. You are too kind. Mother took my hands and looked me up and down. You've lost weight, she said, distressed. Are you settling in well at the mansion? I smiled and nodded. Mother, I'm very well. The princey treats me very well. I spoke the truth. Mother looked at Xander behind me. Her eyes filled with gratitude. Our whole family escorted Xander inside, happy and harmonious. Like a perfect dream, the family feast at the general's residence was held in the warm chamber. No outsiders. Only our family. Father and brother pulled Xander into conversation. Their words all about military affairs. From northern border defenses to western war horses. They had found a kindred spirit, talking enthusiastically. At first, father was somewhat reserved, calling him Your Highness. After a few cups of wine, it became my good son-in-law. The smile on his face was brighter than I had ever seen it. My brother Samuel had always been arrogant, looking down on all the noble young men in the capital. But now, the way he looked at Xander was full of admiration. The admiration of one warrior for another. Stronger man. Mother held my hand, piling food into my bowl, asking if I ate well, slept well, if Xander really treated me as thoughtfully as he seemed. I answered her one by one, telling her I was well, better than ever. I looked around the warm chamber, bright with candlelight, filled with laughter, father's boldness, mother's kindness, brother's care, and the man sitting beside father, glancing sideways at me now and then. He did not speak much, but every word hit the mark. He naturally took the soup mother handed him. He patiently answered my brother's slightly naive tactical questions. He had blended into my family so naturally, so harmoniously, as if he had always belonged here. My heart was filled with a warm feeling, peace, stability, and a trace of pride I had not even noticed myself. This was my family. This was also my husband. After the meal, Mother pulled me into her room for some private words. She sent the servants away, held my hands, and hesitated. Sienna, she said. Her eyes worried. The prince treats you well, but you are still newlyweds. There are things men are too shy to bring up. You must take the initiative. My face burned bright red at once. Mother, what are you talking about? I am a mother. I know these things. Mother patted my hand. The prince is a great hero, but he is also a normal man. You can't let him keep sleeping in the study, can you? If word gets out, people will laugh at the Sterling family's daughter for not knowing how to serve her husband. Others will guess that the prince is dissatisfied with you. Mother's words pricked my heart. I knew she meant well. Afraid I would not secure my position in the mansion. Afraid Xander's patience and kindness would wear away with time. But just thinking about taking the initiative made me feel uncomfortable all over. I had been raised as a proper young lady, educated and well-behaved. The very thought of such private matters made my face burn. You're too shy, Mother said. Between husband and wife, there are not so many rules. Remember, hold a man's heart and you hold your position as princess. Go on. The prince is waiting for you in the front hall. I walked out of Mother's room in a daze, my mind in chaos. Xander was saying goodbye to father and brother in the front hall. When he saw me come out, he held out a hand. Let's go home, he said. Those two words made my heart race again. Home. My home with him. I placed my hand in his palm. His hand was as warm as ever. We said goodbye to my family and boarded the carriage back. In the carriage, he seemed to notice my absent-mindedness. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Did your mother say something to you?" I shook my head. "Nothing." I did not dare meet his eyes. I felt those deep pupils could see straight through all my thoughts. It was late when we returned to the mansion. He walked me to the bedroom door. "Rest early," he said just as he had the past few nights. Turning to leave for the study. "Your Highness." I plucked up my courage and called him back. He turned, looking at me questioningly. I clenched my palms until my nails almost dug into my flesh. In my mind were Mother's worried face and her words. I took a deep breath. "It's late." I lowered my head, my voice thin as a mosquito's hum. "The study is not as warm as the bedroom." After speaking, I wanted to crawl into a hole and hide. It was probably the boldest thing I had ever said in my life. I did not dare look up at his reaction. I could only see his black boots standing motionless before me. The air seemed to freeze. Every second felt unbearably long. Just when I thought he would refuse or laugh at me, he let out a soft, gentle laugh. Then I heard him say, "Very well. I will obey the princess." He followed me into the bedroom. It was the first time he had stepped into this room at night since we married. I was so nervous. My palms sweated. Chloe and the other maids had already prepared hot water. I tried to act calm and walked behind the screen to bathe. My heart thudded like a drum. Xander did not follow. He only sat in the outer room and picked up a book to read. That relieved me a little. I washed quickly and changed into my nightgown. A modest pale blue silk one, high-necked and long-sleeved. I dawdled out from behind the screen. He was still reading by candlelight. His side profile was sharp and focused, less imposing than in the daytime, more scholarly. Hearing me, he looked up. His gaze fell on me, then quickly moved away. The tips of his ears seemed a little pink. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it. "You should wash up, too," I said, my voice a little dry. He hummed in agreement, closed the book, and walked toward the screen. I quickly climbed into bed and wrapped myself tight in the quilt, leaving only my eyes exposed. I pricked up my ears, listening to the sound of water behind the screen. My cheeks burned like fire. My mind raced, repeating Mother's words. What should I do later? Pretend to be asleep? Before I could think it through, he came out. He wore only a loose white inner garment. His long black hair fell over his shoulders, still damp. His strong, smooth chest was exposed. He smelled of wet steam and faint soap. He looked nothing like the prince in court robes or tight fighting clothes I had seen during the day. Less distance, more masculine charm. My heart raced out of control again. He dried his hair with a cloth and walked toward the bed. I nervously closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. I felt him stop beside the bed and stand there for a long time. Then the bed sank slightly on his side. He had gotten in. He did not lie down at once. Instead, he blew out most of the candles, leaving only one dim wall lamp. The room darkened at once and fell quiet. I could clearly hear both of us breathing, mine fast and messy, his steady and deep. He lay down. We shared the same quilt. A forearm's length separated us. Neither moved. I could feel the heat radiating from his body like a stove, making me burn all over. I did not know what to do. My body was stiff as stone. Just then, he suddenly spoke. "Sienna." His voice was especially deep in the quiet night. I jumped, my body trembling almost invisibly. He seemed to notice. He sighed softly. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I won't do anything to you. I just don't want to sleep alone in that cold study anymore." There was a tiredness and loneliness in his voice I had never heard before. My heart suddenly softened slowly. I turned toward him by the dim light. I looked at him. He was looking back at me. Those deep eyes burned like two flames in the dark. "I know you're not ready yet," he said quietly. "That's all right. I'll wait until you're willing to see me as your husband, not just some prince forced upon you." His words were like a warm current, washing away all my tension and unease. He understood everything. He understood my fear, my hesitation. He had been protecting my dignity gently and carefully. My eyes stung. I looked at him. This man called a god of slaughter by the world. and for the first time, I felt pity for him. He was only human. He could be lonely, too. He could crave warmth. Slowly, I inched toward him, then, summoning all my courage, I reached out and lightly touched his hand. His hand was burning hot. The moment I made contact, it tensed violently. He looked at me in disbelief. I did not speak. I only moved closer, placed my hand in his palm, and whispered, "Your Highness, the bed is very big. You don't have to stay so far away." His hand closed around mine. His grip was tight, as if he might crush my bones, but he realized at once, and relaxed, holding my hand firmly, gently, leaving no gap between us. He did not move closer. We still kept a little distance, but that space was filled with the warmth of his palm. We did not speak again that night. I slept soundly, the most peaceful sleep I had had in days. In my dreams, there was no humiliation from the Golden Throne Hall, no sickening face of Julian, only a warm embrace and a steady, strong heartbeat. When I woke the next morning, I found I had rolled into his arms at some point. My head rested on his arm, my cheek against his solid chest, my whole body enclosed in his tight hold. I jolted fully awake. My face burned bright red. Two slept so recklessly. I froze, not daring to move an inch, and quietly looked up at him. He was still asleep, his breathing even and long. Asleep. He looked less sharp, more gentle. Long eyelashes cast faint shadows under his eyes. I had never seen him like this, like a beast that had let down all its defenses, exposing its softest belly. I stared, lost in thought, and unconsciously lifted a finger to touch his eyelashes. Just before my fingertip could reach him, his eyes snapped open. Those bottomless dark eyes locked directly onto mine. I snatched my hand back in fright, guilty as a child caught doing something wrong. "Morning," he said, his voice lazy and hoarse with sleep. It sounded especially nice. "Morning." My voice was barely a whisper. I wanted to jump out of his arms at once, but he tightened his arm around me, holding me still, and rubbed his chin lightly on top of my head like a lazy, contented cat. The thought made me want to laugh, and the tension eased. "Sleep a little longer," he said. "We don't have to greet the palace today." I had just remembered. We had 3 days leave for our wedding, but held like this, how could I possibly sleep? We lay quietly together, not speaking. After a while, I thought he had fallen asleep again. I carefully wriggled out of his arms. I had just sat up when I heard his amused voice from behind. "Where is the princess going?" I stiffened. He hadn't been sleeping at all. He was pretending. I glared back at him in embarrassment. He had already sat up, leaning against the headboard, watching me with a lazy smile, amusement clear in his eyes. "I'm hungry." I blurted out an excuse. "All right." He threw off the covers and got up neatly. "I'll have breakfast with you." During breakfast, Felix entered and reported that a message had arrived from the palace. An oral edict from the emperor. There had been a major problem with the final stages of the Southern Flood Control Project. Xander was ordered to go to the Ministry of Works immediately to assist. Xander's face darkened. At once, we finished breakfast quickly. He changed into court robes. Before leaving, he said to me, "I may be back late today. If you're bored in the mansion, ask Felix to show you around. Or you may return to the general's residence." I nodded. "Go and do your work. Don't worry about me." He gave me a deep look, then turned and strode away. After he left, I had little to do, so I asked Felix to show me around the mansion. The Prince of Northern Pacification's mansion was enormous, several times larger than the general's residence. Pavilions, terraces, and gardens lay around every corner. When we reached a quiet, remote courtyard, Felix pointed to the dusty gate and said, "Princess, this is the mansion's treasure house. His Highness ordered that you may enter whenever you wish." I suddenly remembered the jade seal Xander had given me. I told Felix to open the door. Inside, the light was dim. The air smelled of agarwood and old things. The room was filled with all NDS of items, weapons, ancient books, jewels, rare curios. Everything a person could want. I wandered casually, and in an unremarkable corner, I found a dust-covered chest. It was not locked. I brushed off the dust and opened it. Inside were no gold or jewels. Only a pile of children's toys, a rattle, a 9-ring puzzle, a small wooden horse, several crudely painted kites, and a whole box of candy wrappers. Colorful, various kinds carefully smoothed and stacked neatly. On top of the wrappers lay one piece of candy. Shriveled and dark with age. My heart jolted violently. Lantern Festival. 7 Wu Street. The 7-year-old little girl. I suddenly understood when he said he had remembered it for many years. He had meant it. I picked up the unforgettable candy. Something heavy struck my heart. It felt sore and full with an indescribable sweetness. I was lost in my thoughts when suddenly Chloe rushed in. Her face flustered. "Princess." "It's bad. A messenger came from the general's residence. He says Master was summoned to the palace by His Majesty and hasn't returned." My heart dropped. "What's wrong?" "I don't know." "Princess." Chloe was almost in tears. "I only heard it. It's about that flood control project that Julian was in charge of. The dam broke. Many people died. Now the censorate is impeaching Julian for deceiving the emperor and embezzling project funds. And they say our general's Rezi Denke is involved too." My mind buzzed loudly. Julian embezzling funds. The dam collapsed and they were dragging my father into it. That was impossible. My father had nothing to do with that project. Wait. Suddenly, I remembered something. 3 years ago, when Julian was assigned to manage flood control in the south, he lacked startup funds. My father admired his talent and for my sake had secretly given him a large sum of money in my mother's name. It was done in absolute secrecy, apart from our family's closest members. No one knew. If Julian really embezzled the project funds, then the money my father had given him would become unexplainable stolen money, defying the emperor, embezzling state funds, colluding with officials, forming factions. Every charge was enough to execute an entire clan. I froze as if dropped into a block of ice. My hands and feet turned cold. I rushed out of the treasure house like a madwoman. "Prepare the carriage. I'm going to the general's residence." My voice trembled with fear. Chloe was terrified and quickly held me up. "Princess, don't panic. His Highness is already handling this. If you go now, my father is still in the palace." I cut her off, eyes red. "I can't just wait here." Steward Felix hurried over. He was much calmer than Chloe. "Princess, you must calm down," he said firmly. "Old servants have been watching the general's residence. We will report immediately if there is news. The last thing you should do now is return there. You should go to His Highness." I froze sharply. "Right. Find Xander. He was the only one who could save my father. Save the Sterling family. Where is the prince?" I grabbed Felix's arm, clutching my last lifeline. "At the Ministry of Works," Felix said. "By His Majesty's order. He is joining the 3 high courts to hear this case." Ministry of Works. Joint trial by the 3 high courts. It was even worse than I had imagined. "Prepare the carriage to the Ministry of Works," I ordered at once. Felix hesitated. "Princess, the ministry is an important government area. I am the Princess of Northern Pacification." I looked at him word by word. My husband is inside. My father's life hangs in the balance. Whoever dares stop me will answer with their head. My gaze must have been terrifying. Felix froze, then bowed his head. "Yes. Old servant will arrange it at once." The mansion's carriage raced through the capital streets at top speed. I sat inside, hands and feet icy. I prayed over and over in my heart. "Father, you must be safe. You must. Julian." I gritted my teeth, repeating his name. Raging hatred surged in me. The Sterling family had treated him well. I had waited faithfully for him for 3 years. And this was how he repaid us. Embezzling flood funds, shoddy construction, killing countless commoners. And now that the scandal broke, he dragged my family down with him. I had been blind. How could I have ever loved such a heartless beast? The carriage stopped at the gate of the Ministry of Works. As expected, the guards blocked us. Prince's carriage may not enter a government area without permission. Felix stepped forward to negotiate, but the guards refused to let us pass. I could not wait any longer. I lifted the curtain and stepped out. I am the Princess of Northern Pacification, I said coldly to the captain. I must see the prince on urgent business. Who dares stop me? My status and my desperate aura silenced everyone. The guards exchanged looks and dared not block me. I lifted my skirt and walked step by step into the ministry. Inside the ministry, the atmosphere was murderous. Officials hurried back and forth, all with grave expressions. No one dared stop me as I walked through. At the main hall door, Xander's personal guards blocked me. Princess, His Highness is in a meeting. Move, I said, my voice low but unquestionable. The guards were about to speak again when Xander's voice came from inside. Let her in. The guards stepped aside at once. I pushed the door open and walked in. Inside the hall sat more than 10 officials. Minister of Personnel, Vice Minister of Justice, Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, all high-ranking ministers. Every gaze fixed on me. Xander sat in the main seat in a black official robe, his face like water. When he saw me, he frowned, but showed no surprise, as if he had known I would come. He stood up and walked to me. What's wrong? His voice was low, only for me to hear. I looked at him, my eyes burning. All my strength and pretense collapsed in front of him. My father, my voice choked. They took my father to the palace. They say our family is involved in Julian's case. Xander, my father is innocent. He took my cold hands. His palms were dry and warm. I know, he said. Don't be afraid. I'm here. His voice was like magic. Just 3 words and my chaotic heart settled at once. He asked no more questions. He only led me by the hand to a side chamber and told a guard to pour me hot tea. Wait here for me, he said. I'll be right back. I nodded. He turned back to the main hall. I heard him say to the officials, that is all for today. You may all leave. The officials exchanged hesitant glances. The Vice Minister of Justice stood up and bowed. Your Highness, the Julian case is of great importance. His Majesty presses for a quick resolution. I said today is over. Xander's tone was unarguable. Does Lord Chin dare to question my decision? The Vice Minister's face paled in fright. This official dares not. Then leave, Xander said coldly. In 1 hour, I will submit the preliminary findings to His Majesty. It will not delay His Majesty's business. The officials did not dare object further and rose to take their leave. As they passed the side chamber, they could not help but glance at me with curiosity. I held my back straight, letting them look. I was the Princess of Northern Pacification. I stood here with full right. Soon only Xander remained in the main hall. He walked into the side chamber and sat beside me. Now you may speak, he said. What exactly happened? I told him everything I had learned and my suspicion about the secret funding. I spoke quickly and messily. By the end, my voice was tearful again. That money was given by father in mother's name, behind everyone's back. There are no official records. Now that Julian is in trouble, that money will be the worst evidence. They can say father was his accomplice, that it was bribery. Xander, what do we do? I clutched his sleeve, lost and helpless. He listened quietly to the end, his face showing no surprise at all. He only lifted a hand and gently wiped the tears from my eyes with his thumb. I thought it was something serious, he said calmly. So this is what upset you? I stared. This is a crime punishable by death. How could he act like it was nothing? What else? He looked at me and asked. I have long known about your father funding Julian. I was completely stunned. You knew all along. He nodded. I knew the day Julian left for the South. His personal attendant was one of our men. My mind went blank. The secret my family thought was perfectly hidden. He had known every detail for 3 years. This man, just how much was he hiding from me? Then why? Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Tell you what? He raised an eyebrow. Let you worry over that fool. Or let you stop your father. Cut off his money so he couldn't embezzle. If not for that, How could he have fallen so hard today? His tone was casual, as if speaking of something unrelated to him, but I heard the cold calculation hidden deep within. I looked at him and suddenly felt a little strange. I had thought he was just a quiet military man, but I forgot. He was also the Prince of Northern Pacification, the imperial uncle who stood unshakable in the treacherous court. His mind was far deeper than I had ever imagined. So, Julian ending up like this. I spoke with difficulty. Did you? Also. I only pushed the boat along with the current. He cut me off. His eyes dark. What truly destroyed him was his own greed and stupidity. No one else is to blame. He was right. If Julian had been upright and honest, no one could have trapped him. But my father, I still worried. Relax. Xander squeezed my hand gently. His Majesty knows your father is innocent. Summoning him to the palace was only a warning, to tell him to see people clearly in the future and not to trust every stray dog. His words air blunt, but they let my hanging heart fall completely. And Julian, he defied the emperor, embezzled state funds. Evidence is conclusive. He faces the death penalty, Xander said calmly. As for Selena, as an accomplice, she will not escape death either. But out of consideration for her delicate health, I will have the Ministry of Justice take care of her. When he said delicate health and take care, his tone held a faint cold mockery. I shivered. Julian and Selena were completely finished. They had offended not just me, but the most untouchable man in the capital. All right. Stop thinking about it. Xander stood up. Go back to the mansion and rest. I will return as soon as I finish my work here. Your father will be out of the palace by dinner at the latest. I looked at him. 1,000 words stuck in my throat. In the end, only 2 came out. Thank you. He smiled and rubbed my head. Silly girl. No need to be polite with me. I am your husband. I was respectfully escorted back to the mansion by Xander's men. This time all the officials at the Ministry of Work stood at the gate, bowing as I left, their eyes filled with awe. I sat in the carriage. My heart nothing like it had been on the way there. I had gone filled with terror and despair. I returned with a peace I had never known. Xander. This man was like a mountain. As long as he was there, even if the sky fell, he would hold it up for me. When I reached the mansion, Felix came to meet me at once. Princess, you've returned. His face held unconcealed worry. What of the general's residence? It's all right. I cut him off. His Highness has settled everything. My father will be home by dinner. Felix stared. Then surprise and admiration spread across his face. His Highness is truly all-powerful. I smiled and did not explain further. I let Chloe lead me back to our chambers. After washing and changing into casual clothes, I sat by the window, looking at the crabapple flowers in the yard. My heart was completely calm. For the first time, I truly felt the comfort of power, and for the first time, I thanked heaven that I had married Xander. If I had married Julian instead, I would be a prisoner by now, buried with my entire family for his stupidity and greed. Fate truly works in mysterious ways. In the afternoon, Felix came to report the Julian residence had been seized by the capital's guards. Julian and Selena had been arrested in the street and taken to the Ministry of Justice dungeons. It was said that as they were seized, Selena had fallen ill on the spot and fainted. After a bucket of cold water woke her, she screamed and cried, claiming she knew nothing and had been tricked by Julian. She even tried to run out, begging for mercy from her dear sister Sienna. A guard kicked her to the ground and dragged her off like a dead dog. Julian had said nothing, his face ashen. Felix described it vividly. Chloe listened thoroughly satisfied. Serves them right. Karma. I listened but felt nothing. I only thought this was the so-called deep affection Julian had boasted of. When disaster came, they flew apart. The woman he had broken his engagement to protect. When danger came, the first thing she did was push him out to take the blame. How ridiculous. How sad. As evening fell and darkness came, good news finally arrived from the general's residence. My father had returned safely from the palace. The emperor had only reprimanded him and fined him 6 months' salary. No further charges would be pressed. The weight on my heart lifted completely. Mother sent a message thanking the prince for his help and telling me to stay safely in the mansion. Not to worry. I had Chloe give the messenger a generous red envelope. When night fully came, Xander returned. He looked tired, weariness in his brow. I went to meet him at once. Took off his outer robe, and told Chloe to bring the hot water I had ready. Wash your face first and rest, I said. He watched me hurry about, not speaking, but his eyes grew unusually gentle, after he washed and changed into casual clothes. I led him to the dining table. Dinner was plentiful, all prepared under my own watch. Several dishes were from my mother's recipes, his hometown specialties. Try it. See if it suits you, I said, ladling a bowl of soup for him. He took a sip, then looked up at me. It's perfect, he said. It's the most authentic taste of home I've had in 10 years. My heart warmed at his words. 10 years away from home. He had guarded the northern border for a decade without returning. This revered prince of northern pacification was still just a man who missed home. If you like it, I'll make it for you every day, I blurted out. I froze as soon as I spoke. It sounded exactly like a wife speaking to her husband. He smiled, the light in his eyes brighter than the moonlight outside. Good, he said. A promise is a promise. We ate quietly, warmly, afterward. He did not go to the study as usual. Instead, he walked with me in the yard. Moonlight poured over us like water. Julian confessed, he suddenly said, breaking the silence. He's even less spine than I thought. He put all the blame on his superiors. Said he was forced to misappropriate funds. He even claimed Selena once saved his life and he acted foolishly to pay for her medicine. I sneered. That's always how he is. Always excuses. Always someone else's fault. What about Selena? I asked. Still crying. Not anymore. Xander's tone held amusement. I had them show her Julian's signed confession. Especially the part where he said everything he did was for her. She stopped crying after that. She just cursed all his ancestors for 18 generations. I could picture the scene. It must have been quite a sight. And execution in 3 days. Xander said lightly. His Majesty is furious and ordered swift severe punishment. No one can save them now. I nodded and said no more. They deserved it. We walked under an osmanthus tree. The evening breeze brought sweet fragrance. Sienna. He stopped and turned to me. It's all over. Now. No one will ever wrong you again. I looked at him in the moonlight. His face took my breath away. Suddenly, I did something even I thought bold. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips lightly, gently, a touch as brief as a dragonfly skimming water. Then I hung my head, blushing like a frightened rabbit. Afraid to meet his eyes. I tried to explain. To say it was to thank him, but I was too nervous to speak properly. He said nothing. He only reached out and pulled me tightly into his arms. His hold was strong, as if he wanted to merge me into his bones. I could hear his heart thundering, beat after beat, ringing in my ears. And in my heart, I pressed my face against his chest, breathing in his scent deeply. Faint soap mixed with his sharp masculine aroma. We held each other for a long time. Not speaking, but the silence spoke louder than any words. My legs grew numb before he slowly let me go. He looked down at me. Deep emotion surged in his dark eyes like a deep ocean about to erupt. It's late. His voice was rough. Let's go back to our room. I hummed in agreement, my face burning hot enough to fry an egg. He took my hand, lacing our fingers together. Our palms were both damp with sweat. I couldn't tell whose was whose. Back in the room. He did not sit and read as he had the past few nights. He followed me behind the screen. Hot water had already been prepared, steam curling upward. He put his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Warm breath brushed my neck, making me shiver. Sienna. He whispered my name, his voice muffled and blurred, holding back desire. Help me. My body went rigid. My mind went blank. I felt his hot hands cover my waist, slowly tightening through the thin fabric. I was so nervous I forgot to breathe. He seemed to sense my stiffness and stopped. He sighed, burying his face in my neck and taking a deep breath as if drawing strength, trying to calm himself. "Never mind," he said after a long while. His voice low. "I'll do it myself." He let go and turned to untie his belt. I looked at his broad back, his smooth, strong muscles, and a strange impulse surged in me. Pity, guilt, or something else. I didn't know. I only knew I didn't want to see him look disappointed. I didn't want him to think I was rejecting him. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, taking the half-untied belt from his hand. "I'll do it," I said, my voice soft but firm. His body tensed violently. He turned to look at me in disbelief. I didn't meet his eyes. I only lowered my head and clumsily unfastened his complicated buttons. My fingers trembled several times. I brushed his burning skin. Each touch sent a jolt through both of us, making us shiver at the same time. Finally, the belt came loose. His black outer robe slipped off his shoulders, revealing the white inner garment beneath. I didn't stop. I kept untying the inner robe strings. This time, he did not stop me. He only stood quietly, letting me peel away his layers and my own defenses. When he stood before me bare-chested, I finally gathered the courage to look up. His body was even better than I had imagined. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, even firm muscles covered in scars large and small. Sword wounds, arrow wounds. Each was a fierce medal, telling of his great battles. My heart ached. I reached out, my fingertips gently touching the longest scar on his chest, stretching from his left shoulder to his abdomen, nearly splitting him in two. "Did it hurt?" I whispered. "It doesn't hurt anymore." He took my hand and kissed it lightly. "It's fully healed. It's just ugly." He smiled self-mockingly. "Did it frighten you?" I shook my head, stood on tiptoe, and copied him, pressing a soft kiss on the fierce scar. "They're not ugly," I said, looking seriously into his eyes. "They're your glory, and they're my pride." His breathing turned rough at once. He looked at me, his eyes as if he wanted to devour me whole. In the next second, he swept me up into his arms and strode into the bathtub. Hot water splashed everywhere. I gasped and clung to his neck instinctively. "Xander." He did not answer. He only lowered his head and caught my lips precisely. This kiss was nothing like any before. It was no longer tentative, no longer gentle. It was filled with possession and hunger, like a long-gathering storm, swallowing all my senses. I was left dizzy and weak, holding on to him like driftwood, letting him take whatever he wished. That night was long yet short. The red candle burned out. Dawn came. I was so tired I could not move a finger. As I drifted into sleep, my last thought was, Mother was right. The Prince of Northern Pacification was indeed a very normal man. Almost too normal. In fact, when I woke the next morning, my whole body ached, as if run over by a carriage. I shifted and felt myself locked in a burning hot embrace. I opened my eyes and met Xander's smiling gaze. He had long been awake, lying on his side, watching me without blinking. "Morning." His voice was lazy and satisfied. My face burned bright red in an instant. The wild, shameful scenes from the night before flooded my mind uncontrollably. I buried my face in the quilt, afraid to look at him. He chuckled low, the vibration of his chest traveling through the quilt to my face. "Is the princess shy?" he asked, already knowing the answer. I reached up from under the quilt and tapped him lightly, soft and powerless. He caught my hand and kissed it. "I'm sorry," he said, amusement in his tone. I couldn't control myself. I grew even more embarrassed, nearly burning up inside the quilt. "It's getting late." He finally stopped teasing me. "We should get up. Let me help you." Before I could react, he lifted the quilt and swept me into his arms again. I yelped and clung to his neck. "I can do it myself." "Are you sure?" He raised an eyebrow, his gaze flicking meaningfully to my sore waist. I fell silent at once. He carried me behind the screen and dressed me himself. His fingers were long and steady, skilled at untying belts, yet clumsily endearing when dressing me. Several times he tied the buttons wrong. I laughed at his earnest, helpless expression. He smiled too, lowering his head to kiss my forehead. It seems I need more practice. His words were ambiguous and matter-of-fact. I blushed and let him arrange me. It was a new feeling. Strange but not unpleasant. A strange sweet warmth of being cherished. At breakfast, Felix and the servants looked at me differently. If before it had been respect, now it was respect mixed with awe and a quiet knowing joy. I could feel it. My position as princess had truly become secure. Starting that day, Chloe served me food, whispering excitedly, "Princess." Wonderful news. The Ministry of Justice posted a notice early this morning. Julian and Selena will be executed at noon in 3 days. My chopsticks paused. So soon. The notice lists all their crimes clearly. Embezzling flood funds. Using shoddy materials causing the dam to break. Drowning hundreds. And Selena was never sick. She faked it. She bribed a doctor to make false records just to trick Julian. The whole capital is talking about it. Everyone calls them shameless adulterers and evil beasts. Chloe spoke with great satisfaction. I listened calmly. I see. I replied lightly and continued eating. Those people, those things, they were all in the past. Whether they lived or died no longer concerned me. My life should no longer be occupied by such filth. Xander seemed busy. After breakfast, he went to his study again. With nothing else to do, I formally took over the mansion's inner affairs. I called for Felix and spent the whole day going over all the mansion staff and accounts. Felix was truly an excellent steward. He ran the mansion perfectly. Still, there were small, long-standing trivial problems. I pointed them out one by one and gave solutions. Felix's gaze changed from careful inspection to surprise, finally to complete trust and admiration. "Princess, you are truly wise and quick-witted," he praised sincerely. "With you here, the mansion is blessed and His Highness is blessed." I smiled. "You flatter me, Steward Felix. I will still need your help in the future." In the evening, Xander returned. As soon as he entered the room, he saw me bent over a pile of account books by candlelight. He frowned, walked over, and took the book from my hand. "That's enough for today," he said. "Don't tire yourself out. I didn't marry my princess to be my accountant." I stood up and stretched my stiff neck. "I just want to learn the mansion's affairs as soon as possible. So, you won't be distracted." He looked at me deeply, then pulled out a long box from behind him and handed it to me. "What's this?" I asked curiously. "A gift for you," he said. "Open it." I lifted the lid. Inside lay an exquisitely made short bow and a quiver of feathered arrows. The bow was carved from fine red sandalwood, covered in intricate cloud patterns. It was slightly heavy in my hand. Cool to the touch. "Women in the northern border shoot from horseback and manage their homes on foot," he said, his eyes dark. "My princess cannot only keep accounts. You must also know how to protect yourself." My heart was struck hard. He had given me not jewels or hair ornaments, but a bow. In his own way, he was telling me I was not just his wife, a woman kept in the inner chambers. I was his partner, the mistress of the Northern Pacification Mansion. "Do you like it?" he asked. I nodded hard. "I like it very much." He smiled, a smile like ice melting, like spring arriving. "Another day. I'll teach you to ride and shoot," he said. "Okay." I held the bow close as if holding the whole world. This man, he always moved me deepest when I least expected it. 3 days later, the day of Julian and Selena's execution, the whole capital emptied. Citizens flooded the streets to watch, eager to see the once glamorous pair lose their heads. I did not go. I woke early that day, changed into neat riding clothes, took the bow Xander had given me, and went to the mansion's training ground. Xander said he was on holiday that day and would teach me archery himself. The training ground was enormous, much larger than the general's residence. Rows of weapons lined the edges. Swords, spears, halberds, glinting coldly. Xander was already waiting. He wore a black fighting suit, his long hair tied high. He looked like a sharp sword drawn from its sheath, full of restrained power. When he saw me, he waved. "Come here." I walked over. He took the bow from my hand. Watch carefully. The most important thing in archery is steadiness. Steady hands. Steady heart. He demonstrated as he spoke. Drawing the bow. Knocking the arrow. Aiming. His movements smooth and perfect. Whoosh. The feathered arrow cut through the air and struck the red center of the target 100 paces away. The fletching still trembled. I stared dumbfounded. That's amazing. I praised sincerely. He smiled and handed me the bow. Your turn. I copied him. Clumsily. Taking up the bow and arrow. It was heavier than I expected. The string harder than I imagined. I used all my strength and only managed to pull the bow halfway. My arm shook uncontrollably. Xander stepped behind me. Wrapped his arms around me from behind. His chest pressed firmly against my back. Warm breath brushed my ear. Don't be nervous. He whispered. Relax. His large hands covered mine, guiding me to adjust my posture. Straighten your waist. Keep your arm level. 3 points. 1 line. Mind and body as one. His voice had a calming power. My tense body slowly relaxed. With his help, I finally drew the bow fully. Good. Just like that. Release. I let go. The arrow hummed and flew out, then arced crookedly and landed on the grass. 10 steps short of the target. I blushed bright red. I am too stupid. It's excellent. For the first time. He comforted me. You just need practice. He did not let go. He still held me in his arms, teaching me arrow after arrow, hand over hand. From nervous shyness at first, I slowly grew used to the warmth of his embrace and his scent. We were so close. I could smell the fragrance in his hair, feel the vibration of his chest when he spoke. Sunlight fell over us, warm and soft. I even forgot what day it was. I forgot that at that very moment on the other side of the capital, 2 people were facing death. Not until noon past did Felix send a messenger to report. It was all over. Clean and quick. I lowered the bow and breathed out deeply. The last shadow in my heart vanished with their deaths. I could finally completely say goodbye to the past. In the afternoon, Mother came. She took my hand and looked me over carefully again and again. Her smile brimmed with relief and joy. You've put on a little weight and your complexion is glowing, she said. It seems the prince truly treats you well. I smiled and nodded. Mother, don't worry. Just then, Xander walked in from outside. He greeted her with a bow. Mother-in-law. Mother quickly told him to rise. The way she looked at him was full of gratitude and approval. Your Highness, Sienna has been spoiled by us since she was little. If she's ever thoughtless, please bear with her. You honor me too much. Mother-in-law. Xander glanced at me, his eyes soft. Sienna is perfect. I am the one who is fortunate to marry her. I never expected him to say something like that in front of my mother. My face heated up. Mother beamed from ear to ear. She stayed for dinner before leaving. Before she departed, she pulled me aside and slipped a small booklet into my hand. What's this? I opened it doubtfully, then snapped it shut at once. My face burned as if dripping blood. It was filled with all kinds of indecent posture drawings. You're married now. No need to be so shy. Mother chided gently. The prince is in his prime. You must tend to him properly. Bear children for the mansion soon, and your position will be secure. I squeezed the booklet so tight my knuckles whitened, wanting to sink into the ground. After seeing Mother off, I returned to the chamber and hid the booklet under my pillow like a thief. My heart thumped wildly, as if a rabbit were trapped inside. When Xander came back that night, I was pretending to read, but my eyes kept drifting toward the pillow. What are you reading? He walked up beside me. Nothing. I closed the book guiltily. He eyed me suspiciously, then walked straight to the bed as if he'd found something new. He lifted my pillow. The scorching hot album lay exposed before him. I yelped and lunged to grab it. Too late. He picked it up and flipped through it with great interest, nodding as he read. Mother-in-law is thoughtful. This position. Not bad. We can try it tonight. My mind buzzed and went blank. That night, I learned exactly what it meant to have dug my own grave. Xander was like a boy with a new toy. eagerly pulling me to study every page of the booklet Mother had given me from start to finish. The next morning, I slept straight past midday. When I woke, my waist felt broken. The culprit, Xander, had already left for court, refreshed and energetic. Only a note remained. His bold characters leaping off the paper. The princess has worked hard. You are granted a day of rest. I crumpled the note in anger. That bastard. Taking advantage and still acting smug. The days that followed were peaceful and sweet. Xander truly took more practice to heart. By whenever he was free, he took me to the training ground, teaching me to ride, shoot, even simple self-defense. By night, he dragged me into all kinds of academic discussions, draining every bit of my energy. My riding and archery improved rapidly. My body grew stronger and healthier under his care. Still, when I caught Chloe and the others looking at me with that knowing, ambiguous gaze, my face still burned. I thought such days would last forever until that day. An urgent military report racing 800 li from the northern border shattered all peace. Xander came back very late that night. His face was graver than I had ever seen it. I went to meet him and took his outer robe. A faint smell of blood reached my nose. What's wrong? My heart tightened. He did not speak. He only took my hand and led me into the study. Inside stood a dust-covered messenger, wounded. At the sight of us, he dropped to one knee at once. Your Highness, Princess. Urgent news from the northern border. The Wuan tribes around Mount Yang have torn their covenant and invaded south in force. They've captured 3 of our border towns. General Jude, vice commander of the northern camp, fell in battle covering the people's retreat. The messenger's voice was grief-stricken and urgent. My mind buzzed. The Wuan, savage, fierce nomads from the grasslands, burning, killing, looting without mercy, the greatest threat to the northern border. A few years ago, Xander had personally led troops and crushed them, forcing them to sign a 10-year peace treaty. Who knew that after only a few peaceful years, they would return? I understand. Xander's voice was ice-cold. Go and rest. He dismissed the messenger, then turned and stood before the huge military map for a long time. The vast northern land stretched across it like a sleeping giant. Now that giant was being provoked and torn apart. I walked to his side, looking at the name stained red with blood on the map. My chest tightened painfully. You have to go north, don't you? I whispered. He did not turn around. He only hummed in assent, his voice heavy and stifled. I had always known this day would come. He was the prince of northern pacification. His duty was to guard the vast lands of Great Yang, to protect the millions on the border. He could not stay in the capital forever, living a quiet life with me. I just never thought it would come so soon. When do you leave? At dawn tomorrow, he said. The military situation is urgent. We cannot delay. My heart was squeezed tight by an invisible hand, hurting so much I could barely breathe. I had so much to say. Beg him to be careful. Pray for his quick return. Tell him I would wait here for him. But in the end, only 3 words came out. I'll wait. He turned and crushed me into his arms so hard it felt like he wanted to merge me into his bones. Sienna. His voice held a faint, unnoticeable tremor. I'm sorry. I shook my head and buried my face in his chest. Don't say sorry. You're my hero. Go do what you must. I'll hold the home together. He said no more. He just held me for a very, very long time. That night, we did not discuss any academics. We only slept in each other's arms. I did not sleep at all. I lay awake, watching his sleeping face, wanting to carve his features deep into my mind. Before dawn, he rose. I helped him put on his cold, heavy armor, watching him change from my husband back to the decisive killing prince of northern pacification. He took out a jet black token and placed it in my hand. This is my royal command. With it, you may command all the mansion's guards and all my connections in the capital. Sienna. While I'm gone, protect yourself. If anyone dares wrong you, do not hold back. Kill first. Report later. I gripped the token, still warm from his body, and nodded hard. I understand. At the city gate, the army was already assembled, a black mass of soldiers, their killing aura soaring to the sky. I stood on the gate tower watching him mounted in full armor like an unconquerable god. He looked up at me. Across the great distance our eyes met. He did not say wait for me. I did not say safe travels. Between us, such words were no longer needed. He nodded slightly to me. Then he sharply reined in his horse. Move out. One command. 10,000 horses galloped. The army rolled north like a black dragon toward the horizon. I stood on the tower, watching him vanish into the wind and sand, motionless for a long, long time. I knew from this moment on, my war had begun. After Xander left, the capital returned to its usual calm, the calm before a storm. I understood clearly. The Prince of Northern Pacification's mansion stood too tall, too obvious. With the god of war gone, all the hidden eyes in the dark turned to me. I was not afraid. He had entrusted his home to me, and I would guard it for him. I began going to the training ground often, practicing riding, archery, and self-defense. At first, the guards thought the princess was just amusing herself, but when I used the bow Xander gave me to shoot through a willow leaf 50 paces away, their gazes changed completely. Too awe for a true fighter. Besides training, I poured most of my energy into running the mansion and managing the properties Xander left behind. He had left me far more than an empty mansion, dozens of shops and manors inside and outside the capital, the mansion's wealth, and part of the army's supplies. I spent 3 months sorting every account clearly, plugging several hidden leaks, even bringing several nearly bankrupt shops back to life. Felix's regard for me had grown from admiration to worship. Princess, you are truly a genius at business, he said. I have served His Highness for decades and never seen such skill. I smiled. Just small tricks, nothing grand. What I did soon spread through the capital's noble ladies' circles. Some said I was unfaithful to my womanly duties, showing my face in public. Some said I overstepped my place, wanting to imitate the Empress Wu. Some said I was emptying the mansion while the prince was gone to move everything back to my maiden home. Rumors spread. All kinds of filthy words. I knew someone was pushing this from behind, trying to break me with public opinion. That day, an edict arrived from the palace. Her Majesty the Empress was holding a flower viewing feast in the imperial garden, inviting all titled ladies of the first rank in the capital, including me. Chloe was worried. Princess, could this be a trap? Even if it is, I must go, I said calmly. If I stay away, I'll only confirm those rumors. I want to see exactly what tricks they plan to play. On the day of the feast, I wore the formal crimson robes of a prince's wife with a golden phoenix hairpin atop my head. Escorted by Felix and a squad of the mansion's personal guards, I arrived in the prince's carriage. Grand and imposing, my entrance drew every eye. The noble ladies clustered together, pointing and whispering, their gazes full of jealousy and disdain. I paid them no mind. Walking straight to my seat and sitting down, the feast began. Music and dance filled the air, peaceful on the surface. After 3 rounds of wine, a lavishly dressed young woman walked toward me with a cup. She was beautiful, but arrogance oozed from her brows. I knew her, the Empress's own niece, Princess Annette. It was said she had long coveted Xander, swearing she would marry no one else before he left for the border. She had even begged the emperor to let her reward the army in the north, only to be sharply rejected. Princess of Northern Pacification, she stood before me, looking down her nose. I've heard much of you. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. The word extraordinary dripped with innuendo. I sat still and lifted my eyes. Does Princess Annette have something to say? Hardly a direction. She laughed lightly. I'm just curious. His Highness is far away fighting for our country. His return unknown. The princess sits alone in her chambers. Surely you grow lonely at night. Her words were frivolous and vicious. The surrounding ladies muffled their snickers. I did not grow angry. I only looked at her calmly. You need not concern yourself with me, Princess. His Highness and I may be 1,000 li apart, but our hearts are one. As for you, you are no longer young, yet still unmarried. I suppose none of the capital's talents meet your standards. Or is it that you crave someone you cannot have? My words pierced her sore spot like a needle. Princess Annette's face turned pale. What nonsense are you talking about? She shrieked in rage. I was showing you kindness and you repay me with ingratitude. Guards! She suddenly shouted. I suspect the Princess of Northern Pacification is colluding with rebels in the north, sending secret letters. Search her now. Several nurses behind her lunged at me like tigers. Everyone at the feast froze. No one expected her to go this far. Searching a prince's wife in public. It was grinding the face of the Northern Pacification mansion into the dirt. I watched them coldly, not moving an inch. Just as their hands were about to touch me, I slammed the table. Insolence. My voice was not loud, but it carried the authority of one long used to power and a sharp killing aura I had learned from Xander. The nurses froze, afraid to advance. I stood slowly, pulling a jet black token from my sleeve, holding it high. The prince's order is here. Who dares take another step? The token representing the prince's supreme authority glinted coldly in the sun. Princess Annette's face drained of color. She had never imagined Xander would give me his royal token. Seize her. I pointed at her. Assaulting the princess. Slandering a prince. Plotting treason. Take her into the mansion's cells at once to await His Highness's judgment. As my voice fell, the mansion's guards drew their swords in unison. In an instant, they surrounded Annette and her servants. The cold glint of blades blinded everyone present. The entire imperial garden fell silent, save for Annette's terrified screams. The Empress was alarmed. She hurried over, and at the sight of the tense standoff, her face turned ugly. Stop! She shouted sharply. All of you, stop this instant. The mansion's guards did not move. They obeyed only one person. Me, the bearer of the prince's token. Sienna. The Empress turned to me, her eyes furious and icy. How dare you? Using private soldiers inside the palace. Do you intend to rebel? I met her gaze, calm and respectful. Your Majesty, this concubine dares not. I am only fulfilling the prince's orders before he left. To protect the mansion's honor and the princess's safety, Princess Annette publicly slandered me and accused His Highness of colluding with the enemy. These are crimes punishable by the execution of 9 clans. If I did not defend my innocence, how could I answer to your Majesty or to the whole realm when the prince returns victorious? My words were flawless, elevating a private grudge to a matter of state and loyalty. The Empress was left speechless, her face flushing red and pale. Princess Annette was her only niece, her clan's last hope. She could not let me take her away. Insolence. She trembled with rage. You are using this as an excuse to settle personal scores. Guards. Seize the Princess of Northern Pacification. The Imperial guards beside the Empress moved. The mansion's guards raised their swords in response. The two sides faced off in the garden, the tension at its peak. At that critical moment, a majestic voice boomed from afar. Stop. It was the Emperor. He wore bright yellow dragon robes, walking slowly with his head eunuch. Everyone knelt. Your Majesty. I put away the token and knelt in curtsy. Rise, he said. He stepped between us, his gaze sweeping over me. The Empress and Annette, drawing swords in my garden. What sort of example is this? His voice was soft but carried crushing weight. The Empress and Annette dared not speak. Empress. You tell me what is the meaning of this? The Emperor turned to her. She quickly repeated Annette's story, exaggerating every word. Your Majesty, I only feared for His Highness's reputation abroad. This Sienna woman behaves improperly. My niece kindly warned her, and she... Oh. The Emperor raised an eyebrow, then looked at me. Princess of Northern Pacification. What say you? I recounted the whole truth calmly, without embellishment, without anger. Only facts. Your Majesty is wise. Princess Annette demanded to search me with no proof. If I had backed down today, I would have admitted to treason. My own innocence is small, but the prince's reputation and the morale of hundreds of thousands of soldiers on the border, those are great. I dare not disrupt the army or harm the state for personal feelings. The Emperor fell silent. He looked at me deeply, his gaze sharp and penetrating. Just as it had been in the Golden Hall, after a long while, he suddenly smiled. A fine princess of northern pacification, reasonable, calm, unyielding, with you guarding the rear for the prince, I am at ease. When he spoke, the Empress and Annette's faces turned ashen. The Emperor was openly siding with me. As for Annette, his gaze turned icy, spreading rumors, stirring trouble, insulting your aunt confined to her residence for 3 months to reflect. Empress, you have failed in your duty. Half a year's salary forfeited. The punishment seemed light, but it declared to everyone. The Princess of Northern Pacification was not to be humiliated. I thank your Majesty's grace. I bowed. The storm ended. I left the palace with my guards. I knew this was not over. The Empress and Annette would not stop. They would only strike in darker, crueler ways. Sure enough. Half a month later, a memorial reached the Emperor. It impeached my father, General Sterling, claiming he had long colluded with the executed Julian, secretly funneling profits to build his own power in the South. Attached was a letter in my father's handwriting confessing how he funded Julian and promised him control over Southern water projects. The letter was fake. But my father's funding of Julian was real. Together, they looked like ironclad proof. The court was shaken. My father was suspended and placed under house arrest. When I heard the news, my hands and feet turned cold. They moved fast and every strike was lethal. They could not reach me, so they went after my family. I immediately sent men to trace the letter's origin, but the trail was spotless. I understood. This was a huge net woven for me, the Sterling family, and Xander. I was trapped in the center, alone and helpless. Just as I despaired, a thunderous message arrived from the north. The Prince of Northern Pacification had crushed the Wuhan. 10,000 enemies slain. The Wuhan Khan captured. Great victory in the north. The triumphant army was already on its way back, soon to reach the capital. I held the victory report, seeing Xander's strong signature, and tears burst from my eyes. He was coming back. My mountain was returning. Before I could even rejoice, an imperial edict arrived at the mansion. The Emperor, pitying the princess's longing, graciously allowed me to go 10 li outside the city to welcome him, but alone, without a single soldier or guard. I squeezed the edict and laughed coldly. This was no favor. It was the final sharp blade bared. They meant to kill me outside the city before Xander returned. Leaving no trace, I did not refuse. I accepted the edict. This concubine thanks His Majesty for his grace. The eunuch delivering the edict gave me a meaningful look and turned to leave. Chloe's face had gone white with fear. Princess, you can't go. This is obviously a trap. I know. I touched the royal token Xander had left at my waist. My gaze calm and icy. But I must go. This is their last chance for me and my last chance for them. If I defied the edict and stayed, they would brand me guilty, and the Sterling family with me. If I went, I would be bait, drawing all danger to myself, forcing all their plots into the light. I looked at Chloe. Go. Bring me my red riding robes and the bow His Highness gave me. Chloe shook her head, crying, Princess, go. I snapped. She dared not disobey and ran out in tears. The next day, I rode alone on a white horse, the sandalwood short bow on my back, dressed in fiery red riding robes, under the mixed gazes of the entire capital. I slowly rode out the city gate. 10 li outside the city stood a long pavilion a place for farewells and for welcoming those who returned. I arrived, dismounted, and stood quietly inside waiting for my husband and for those who wanted me dead. The wind was strong, snapping at my robes. All around was dead silence. Not even a bird chirped. I knew in the dark countless eyes were watching me. I did not know how long passed before a faint sound of hooves echoed from the official road. Not the thunder of an army. A dozen riders. Light and fast. They wore black masks on their faces, their curved blades glinting. Their target was clear. Me. I did not move. I slowly drew my bow from my back, nocked an arrow. I never thought I could fight a dozen trained killers alone. I only wanted, if I must die, To take one with me. I wanted them to know. The Prince of Northern Pacification's wife was no lamb to be slaughtered. The killers drew closer. I saw the bloodlust in their eyes. I drew the bow to its full curve. The moment before I released my fingers. A black arrow screaming through the air, faster and fiercer than mine, burst from behind me and pierced the lead killer's throat. He did not even scream before falling stiff from his horse. One after another, second, third, arrows fell like rain. In a few breaths, all dozen killers lay dead, cold corpses on the ground. I froze and slowly turned. At the end of the road, a single rider in black armor, racing toward me through the sunset glow. Behind him, smoke and dust billowed, and the dark banners of his army loomed. It was him, Xander. He had come back. The hooves stopped before me. He dismounted and strode toward me, pulling me tight into his arms. He smelled of dust, of blood, and of the familiar scent I had missed so deeply. "I'm back," he whispered hoarsely in my ear. "I'm sorry I'm late." I buried my face in his chest. All my strength crumbled at last. Tears poured out uncontrollably. That night, Xander held my hand in one, his blood-stained sword in the other, and marched into the palace with 3,000 personal guards. A storm of killing intent surrounding him. The emperor received him in the imperial study. No one knew what they spoke of. Only that when Xander came out, the emperor issued an edict that shook the court. Princess Annette, conspiring with remnants of the disgraced crown prince to murder the prince's family and shake the realm, sentenced to white silk. The empress, instigating and indulging her kin until great wrong was done, stripped of her title, imprisoned in the cold palace. All officials involved, regardless of rank, executed with their entire families. My father's innocence was beyond question. He was restored to his post and rewarded with 1,000 taels of gold. A raging storm was put to rest. By Xander's iron, unflinching hand, he declared to the whole world, "Even a dragon has scales that must not be touched. Offend them and you die." And I, Sienna, was the only scale Xander would ever guard with his life. After the storm, Xander did something no one expected. He asked the emperor for permission to marry me again. 10 li of red dowry, 8 palace sedan, the highest imperial rights. He said the 3-day wedding had been too hasty, too unfair to his princess. He would give me the grandest wedding under heaven, so everyone would know Sienna was his wife, married openly, honorably, carried through the gates in full glory. On our wedding day, I wore the wedding gown he had ordered, made in 7 days and nights, woven from mermaid silk from the North Sea and golden thread from the western regions. On my head, the 9 phoenix crown, heavier and more magnificent than before. Sitting in the sedan, I heard the thunder of music and the cheers of the people. It felt like another lifetime. Last time I sat here, my future was unknown, full of fear. This time my heart was full of peace and joy. I knew beyond the sedan was my home and the man who would shield me from every storm. We bowed to heaven and earth. The ceremony was complete. I was led to the bridal chamber. This time he did not make me wait. Soon he entered. Ed, smelling faintly of wine. He lifted my red veil and stared at my face in the candlelight, lost for a long while. "Sienna," he whispered, "you are so beautiful tonight." He pulled an old, worn brocade box from his chest and opened it. Inside was a box full of colorful candy wrappers and one dried, shrunken candy treasured for 10 years. 10 years ago, he said, I crawled out from a pile of corpses, wanting nothing more to do with this world. Then your candy came. It made me realize there was still sweetness in life. I wondered then what kind of little girl would give all she had to a stranger she didn't know. I searched for you for a long, long time. Until the day in the golden hall I saw you. I knew I had found you. Found the sweetness I lost 10 years ago. Tears spilled down my cheeks again. He wiped them away in a panic. Don't cry. Don't cry. Today is our joyous day. He lowered his head and kissed my tears away. The kiss grew deep and burning. He lifted me and carried me to the wedding bed. Princess. He laughed hoarsely in my ear. A night of wedding bliss is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Tonight, shall we review that little booklet again? Outside, the moon shone soft. Inside, red candles burned bright. I knew our life together from this night on had only just truly begun.